we if you want to inculcate discipline for whatever be the reason, whether I want to train myself in an important skill, whether I'm preparing myself for a mission, whether I want to de-addict myself from an ill-conceived habit, whatever be it, or I just want to continuously ensure that I'm moving on the upward path, I need to have a mentor, a guide. Uh, in fact, the story from ancient India about Ekalavya, a student archer, when refused to be admitted into the school of the teacher, he still accepts the teacher as his teacher, makes a from a mound of clay, he makes a statue of the teacher and practices in front of the teacher. Practices so well that he becomes a great archer over time. And the story this goes on. So Ekalavya accepts Dronacharya as his teacher and is able to master archery from him. Now, having a teacher and being closely attached to the teacher has huge dividends to any disciple. Let me tell another small story. Now, this story is about a man who was confronted in the streets by goons, was beaten badly. And then he says, I have always focused on academics. I need to build my body as well. He goes to a teacher and requests him to accept him as a student and teach him some martial arts. So the teacher takes him in. The teacher initially has to always evaluate, takes him in, and then asks him to practice. And he teaches him one trick. The student starts on that. After a few days, he says, teacher, oh master, this is the only trick you are teaching me. Should I not be learning anything more? He says, no, you continue to practice that. So he does that. And after several months of practice of only one trick, he says, I think you are ready for the contest. He's surprised. He says, I know only one trick. And I see all of the students, they know so many different tricks. Just go to the contest. So he goes, and to his own amazement, he starts qualifying round after round to the point he actually wins the final. He is surprised. He says, I just know one trick. I'm one-handed, and how could I easily beat others? The master smiles at him and tells him that there is only one counter to the trick that I taught you. And the trick is that your opponent has to grab you by your left arm. You don't have any. So the master is one who is very craftily able to turn our lacunae into our strength. Now the master has to be of that level. We should have deep, pervading discernment, be able to look at the individual distinctiveness of every pupil and student, and hence guide and goad that student to the best of his abilities. This quote was also shared by Professor Bigo. So, achieve discipleship. Thakur says, of the master, the guide in thoughts, words, and action, with every interested urge, and have discipline. So, without discipleship onto the right master, discipline cannot remain sustained. Now, let me tell another small program. Let's say I want to lose weight. If I want to lose weight, I can try to follow some instructions. I can do some gym, maybe I can control my food. But if I go to an instructor, sign up with him and tell him that I want to lose weight, put me on a program. Now, as much as it's my wish to lose weight, it becomes the instructor's responsibility to ensure that I am on course. Now, I recollect long ago, almost 29 years ago when I was in college, first year, not in order to become a boxer or a pugilist, but in order to escape ragging in the college, I joined a boxing class. Now, I'm not that much of a sports person since beginning, but he made us run around the campus early in the morning. After a few days, I was so tired, and the late night worker that I am, I missed one day. The second day, he sent one of my friends asking why I couldn't attend. And the third day, he was there right at the door, wake me from my sleep and tell you have to run with others. So by having a master, an active master who is pursuing you, he ensures that the student remains the course and doesn't give up. Now, it's very, very important that the student shows the ability to actively follow the master. Then it becomes easier, much easier. T.C. Thakur writes, the student or disciple who gives his all in carrying out the orders of the master with pleasure is never disappointed. And hence, the disciple's duty is to materialize the commands of the master and to move on, taking him as the ideal. It has always become easy, whether we think of a military training, commando training, or we think of new recruits in an organization, those who listen to the instructor or the master, they easily learn well from the master and are able to move ahead and faster in general. Now let me tell one more aspect of discipline. I spoke briefly about this. We all have heard this, that how are habits formed? People do something, they feel they got rewarded, and at the next cue they repeat, they again get rewarded. When the cycle continues a few times, there is some impression on the mind psychology that happens, and habits are formed. Now, when habits become very hard, they are normally very difficult to break. And if the habit is not good, we call it as an addiction. Now, there are numerous schools here, numerous institutions. They are called as de-addictive centers. People, young generation, some of them initially out of curiosity or out of a sense of adventure, take to drugs, narcotics, and they get addicted to that. The de-addiction centers, they find it so difficult. They have to run a program individualized to every individual. There has to be people following with that, and they know unless the victim has a very thorough discipline within, it's difficult to de-addict. But I'll tell one story from C.C. Thakur's life. There was a man in Devghar where the head ashram is, and he was an addicted smoker. He was a teacher in the ashram school. He would teach every student smoking is bad for health, bad for lungs, but could not give up smoking himself. He was a chain smoker, would consume several packets of cigarettes every day. Now one day, early in the morning after the morning prayer, as he bowed down to Shishi Thakur, Thakur asked him to get some biscuits for him. A box of biscuit. It was a little special biscuit, asked him. But then as he started, said, not one packet or so. I want 4 boxes. So the small village where the ashram was running from, it didn't have even a single shop that would keep 4 food. So he took his bicycle, went to the neighboring town, and then shop after shop he tried, but nobody had 4 boxes. It was just a big. Those were not of the days of big groceries like Tesco's, Walmart's. They're not around, not Costco's. So he couldn't. They're all small shops. And after like visiting several shops, one after the other, perspiring, he finally came across a wholesaler who had just got four boxes and sold him that. So happily, on completing his master's task, he tied him to his bicycle's carrier and then rode as fast as he could to the ashram back. When he reached the ashram, he realized that 6 hours had passed. And as he bowed down to Sisi Thakur, presented that, he didn't look at the boxes of the biscuits. He only asked that the disciple, how many have you smoked since morning? And then he realized he didn't take a single cigarette since morning. The duration in which he would smoke at least 2+ packets. He hadn't even taken a single cigarette. His mind was focused on completing the task given to him by his guru. And from that day onwards, he gave up smoking. So while de-addiction needs a lot of discipline, having a master, accepting discipleship onto one, and having deep love towards that one can ensure, if needed, the discipline can be very quickly incited in a person. The characters of a disciple. Thakur says, untottering humble adherence and allegiance to the love Lord, the principle, and to be conditioned with energetic active mission of his life, staying in him with active thought, service, and discipline are the characteristics of a disciple. See, we can analyze from various angles. When a human being associates oneself with a center, I think this point has been stressed several times since yesterday, and it's true, it cannot be overemphasized, that if we are associated, if we have a center in our life, a master in our life, which is what we call as discipleship, then different aspects of discipline become easy for us. Now we have seen many such stories since time immemorial. Every time a Purushottam has incarnated, Purushottam or a prophet has incarnated, there have been several people who come in association, and a few of them accept truly the prophet as their master during their lifetime. And through this being a disciple, that much of discipline automatically sets in their life, which makes them a realized soul. which makes them get to that state of being wise, the wisdom that Professor Runi was speaking about in the morning today. We see here, like Anand was to Lord Buddha, or Arjun got from Sri Krishna, or we have Hanuman in Lord Ram's life, or we have Nitai Gaur in Sri Chaitanya's life. So there are numerous examples. Thakur says one of his other sayings here says, prophet and disciple, he who explains law of life with its inner intent by which people can conceive and act accordingly to have a propitious prolonged go of life is a prophet. And a disciple is he who is disciplined with active, untottering adherence according to his holy sayings. So we we have seen many such examples for this. Okay, so when I have tried to run fast. Now let me also tell a few more stories of how a teacher ensures that the disciple will. So one is this path, as I said, of immediate of reaching a state of epiphany because of completing a master's task. Now there are many other such incidents in the ancient Indian past. Let me tell one example of Guru Domya and Aruni, or Darun. So Aruni was a disciple. In order to fulfill his master's command, he went out to the forest to gather firewood. While coming back, he sees that there is a breach in the bund, and if the breach is not fixed, the water would overflow and destroy the crops. So he tries to fix that, is not successful, quickly goes back, drops the firewood, comes back, and then lays down in the field in order to stop the flow of water. Later in the night, the guru, on seeing the disciple missing, goes with others, sees that he has lied down there to stop the flow of water. They not only save Aruni, the master is so impressed with his discipleship that he grants him several wishes. Now, Aruni over time goes on to master the teachings of his guru much better than others. In fact, this slok, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, the one that we recited and many of us recite on a daily basis, comes from that same school. Guru Damya is the author of that slok. So uh, his other student, uh, he joins the ashram and is an extremely uh, glutton. He eats a lot, because of which um, he is insolent. And then the master, through series of activities, helps him overcome that. Now, the true master knows the innate hankering of the disciple, knows what are the natural skills, natural individual distinctiveness the student has, because no two human beings are exactly alike. Every human being is different from others. Every human being is unique in himself or herself. So the master has to have the ability to see these innate hankerings and guide the student accordingly. Now we say even in different schools, whether it is school of management, whether it is school of physics, law, whatever, the students have their own taste. The teacher gives assignments based on based on the assignments that are turned in SSS, and then guides accordingly. So in my opinion, I mean, like, while we all understand it is very important to have discipline in life, to learn anything, to train ourselves and all, when we associate ourselves with a guide for that particular subject, we are able to move much faster and stay the course. If we treat the entire life as a journey, just like I have short-term missions in office, maybe personal, outside office, maybe social, or in the community that I stay in. Similarly, my whole life is a journey. I need to have my life. I need to live my life with a purpose, as a mission. If my life has a mission, there has to be a guide for the whole life, and that person's is the master of the life, whose discipleship I must accept. So this convention, entire convention, is centered around the ideology of Sri Thakur Nipul Chandra. We are all his disciples. We have accepted him as the master of our life. So I would like to conclude here with these words that na guru radhikam tattvam, na guru radhikam tapaha, tattva jnanat param nasti, tasmai shri guruve namaha. There is no higher pursuit than following the guru, no higher form of meditation than following the guru. no better form of discipline than accepting the discipleship of a Guru when they pursue them. I, I end here. I'll take, yeah.
Thank you, sir. We have one question. I'm going to read it out to you. It is by William from Australia. He asks, you need to find a disciple or the disciple finds you. If it's you, how do we find one?
Yeah, so my thinking is that every human being is blessed with a basic power of judgment. Right from the childhood, we do come across our parents or through other means. We get to learn to differentiate right from the wrong to some extent. Right, this is the power of judgment that human beings are born with. Now, if we continue to explore and pursue, there will definitely be many instances, many cues that will come our way where we can come across the master. Now, it is true that when the student is ready, the master appears. In the olden days, the students would go to Gurukul, would sort of like we apply for university applications now, and then through a process of selection, whether it's an entrance or a group interview, the students are selected or rejected. In the Gurukul, the Guru would also test the disciple uh, to accept, and if accept, in which discipline, in which school of education should take it. So when the time is ready, that is why it was said that when you are ready, the teacher will find you. I would say, like, every human being should also put an effort from one side to explore. We have contemporary leaders, contemporary guides in any place that we are in. If you look around, there are wise people, there are older people, you can talk to them, and through them, an individual who is trying to explore and pursue will come to a path which will lead that person to find one's guru. In general, uh, there is always a latest prophet for the age, and whenever a prophet incarnates, it's the duty of every human being to explore and find that prophet. We all the prophets, the latest prophet consummates all the past prophets. They are all representative of the same divine spirit. By accepting one is actually accepting all and fulfilling all. The closer the prophet is to my lifetime, the easier it is the easier it is for me to understand him, because I speak his language, I understand his language. He gives examples which are more contextual to me, and hence they are more easily digestible to my understanding, more comprehensible to me. So it said that by accepting the latest prophet, in general, the pursuit of life's goal becomes easier.
Thank you, sir. I hope it answers William's question. Once again, I extend my gratitude to you for joining us. And I hope that a lot of people have their questions answered through your presentation. I thank you, and now I request you to kindly switch off your webcam.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
It is time now for us to head to the last segment of our conference, which is the panel discussion. The topic of the panel discussion is today's education system enough to produce a disciplined generation? We have 5 key speakers, and I'll be inviting them one by one. So first, I would like to invite Sri Assis Basu from US. Sir, if you can hear me, please switch on your webcam.
Good morning and good evening.
So I'm going to introduce you to our audience. Introduce you to our audience. You can hear me? So you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sri Assis Basu is blessed with Sri Sri Thakur's holy name and practice at the age of 11 years, and had Sri Sri Thakur's darshan twice in his lifetime. He works now for Satsang America. He used to work as a business solution architect for several MNCs. He studied and completed computer science degree from University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I welcome you, sir, to the web conference.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is Professor Bishal Sitola, who's joining us from Norway. So please switch on your webcam. But I'll move on to our next panelist. Sir, if I'm audible to you, please. Yes. Hello, sir. Professor is from Department of International Environment and Development Studies, Norwegian University of Life Sciences, Norway, and has more than 28 years of international experience in research, teaching, and collaboration in the following topics: ecology and global change issues, higher education, conflict, peace, and development, including wisdom and personal transformation. So I welcome you to the panel discussion. Our next panelist is Dr. Naresh Singh. Sir, I hereby request you to please switch on your webcam. Hello, sir. Dr. Naresh Singh has nearly 30 years of experience as an international development practitioner and advisor, with a special focus on sustainable livelihoods, poverty, environment, and legal empowerment. He is currently Special Advisor on Sustainability at the Toronto Centre and concurrently Senior Vice President for Global Partnerships at Global Development Solutions Canada. Our next panelist is Professor David Rooney, who gave the introduction. Sir, I request you to please switch on your webcam. We have already introduced you, but for the audience who has just now joined us and people who have joined after the introduction, I would like to repeat that Professor David Rooney is Honorary Professor of Management and Organisation Studies at Mackay Business School, Mackay University in Sydney, Australia. He has researched, taught, and published widely in the areas of wisdom, leadership, the knowledge-based economy, and creative industries. So welcome to the panel discussion. Next up, we have Mr. Sharad Jha, who's joining us from UK. So please switch on your webcam. Joy Guru, sir, I hereby welcome you to the panel discussion. He's a professional with multidimensional skills dealing with the backbone of any nation, its people. He has been in various roles: Director IT Company, British Politics, Vice Chair Primary Education, poet, lot of work in linguistics, various corporate positions in human resource management, and has also been associated with different communities nationally and internationally. Next up, we have Ms. Sushri Sangeeta ji. She was unable to join us on yesterday's panel discussion. Now we are more than delighted to have you today. Kindly switch on your webcam. Joy Guru ma'am, I hereby welcome you to the panel discussion. She's an international development practitioner and researcher in the field of human rights. So before we begin with the panel discussion, I would like to inform our panelists and the audience that the panel discussion is divided on in three segments. So we are going to dedicate the first 15 minutes to the topic, and each one of you will have 2 to 3 minutes to opine on the topic. You're free to say whatever opinions you hold for the topic, and the next 20 to 30 minutes we have a question bank wherein we have questions from international media and questions that we gathered from all of the platforms. So we are going to be catering to that. And the last segment will be 15 minutes, in which we'll be taking questions from the audience, the live questions that we are receiving. So we'll be addressing that. So The topic for today, as I mentioned, is today's education system enough to produce a disciplined generation? So one by one, we can proceed. So, sir, I request Assis Basu sir to take the lead and express his opinion on the topic.
Thank you. Sri Thakur maintained that it is not education if one is skilled in reading and writing alone. Education is never complete in absence of practice, behavior, and normal knowledge. He kept on saying, learning various things, generating no sense, unable to produce a handful of rice, you become a buffalo of memories. So what I become by reading books and doing charcha in the Sanskrit word, I am becoming a slave of the memories that I have to carry through across my lifespan and not evolving into the practice, the meditation-based practice, the life-based practice, and the most importantly, what Sri Thakur said, that without the teacher that can effulgate my wisdom and knowledge, because no wisdom is perfect without a perfect practitioner. We are so fortunate that Sri Thakur left with us an unbelievable and unconditionally